things happen.
Thank you. Okay, I am calling to order the Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, February 2nd. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. Please take care not to share your screen if you don't want everybody to be able to see it later. Thank you. May I have an approval of the agenda? Is Joanna remote?
Stephen.
Oh, Stephen is, okay. So we'll have to do roll call. May I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Thank you. Jill?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
It's approved. I'm opening up for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. I see no hands raised. Okay, I'm closing it for public comments. Thank you very much. Potential adoption of meeting minutes from January 28th. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes from the 28th?
No.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Jill? Aye. Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, so now we have the review and discussion of annual town meeting warrant articles sponsored by town administration and the select board. Brian will take us through them. We do have, hey Joanna. We do have, Maria sent them out to us. I think they're pretty straightforward. So Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. I believe Libby's out sick, correct?
She's online.
Okay, but we're not gonna ask for anything. She's outside.
No, Libby's here too, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. Well, Brian, we're gonna turn it over to you in any case.
I'm gonna share my
Okay.
screen.
Maria is sharing screen.
Trying to do this. There you go.
Okay, well, Brian, we can't, you have to talk so we can see you.
No,
Oh,
I
you
have
can't
to
talk.
move him. There
You have to
go.
move him.
There you
Okay,
go.
there we go.
Oh,
There's
Can you see me
Brian.
now?
We can. Yes, we can, and so happy to see you.
Oh,
Coffee,
thank you.
Brian.
So Article 5, Madam Chair, is the reserve fund, consistent with prior years. We're recommending a $500,000 be raised and appropriated from the fiscal 2024 tax levy and other general fund revenues of the town.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the members?
No.
Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to adopt. Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Jill?
Aye.
Joanna? Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, number 17, please, Brian.
Article 17 is a request to amend the description for the article that was approved for Public Works Facilities Design Improvements. It previously had specifically referenced 188 Matticat Road. And we're asking to amend to include and/or 10 Sun Island Road so that we continue exploration of a potential new site for the DPW Facilities Campus. Given that this is a borrowing article, we do need to amend the language to allow those funds to be borrowed for that purpose. So we'd ask for that as outlined in the article here.
Quick question.
Joe?
Brian, so isn't Sun Island Road by the airport? So this is to include a different site?
It's
Or am
to
I
include
wrong?
a different, no, you're correct, Joe. It is over by the airport and is to include the continued feasibility undertaking within this article that was approved at a prior town meeting. So we would need that amended to be able to use those funds at
Okay.
that, for that location specifically.
Okay. I asked just because when I first read this, I said, I didn't think that the roads off of Matticat Road were called Sun Island Road.
No, that's correct. It was originally only Matticat Road and we would like to amend it to include that additional facility or site location.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments for Brian?
The town owns that site location now?
10 Sun Island.
That 10 on Silent Island Road, I think town manager will correct me if I'm wrong, but that is actually the Delta Fields property owned by the airport.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
My
Real
first
big focus on that neighborhood lately.
Exactly. Good. Any other questions or comments? In which case, may I have a motion?
So move
Second.
And the motion is,
to adopt.
thank you. Okay, thank you. And roll call, any further discussion on the motion? No, good. Jill? Aye. Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
I'm gonna change you to Jerry. Everybody has to become
Aye.
Jay. Peter?
My
Stephen?
father was Jerry.
Denise? Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Motion to adopt.
So waterways improvement consistent with what we've allocated every year.
Brian, hang on. Brian, hang on.
Yes,
Who is that?
It says Brian.
Just Brian is the background noise?
That's
Oh.
fine.
Oh, he's on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Brian. It's your,
That's okay.
it's your neighbors are chatty.
Okay.
So, okay,
All right.
24, please.
So 24 is waterways improvement fund allocation. Every year we ask for an allocation. Mainly this money has been spent on replacement or work around the town pier. We're recommending, which was in the packet that was presented to the finance committee on Saturday, 367,000 be appropriated from waterways improvement for the purposes stated below. These are the purposes that it can be used on. As I've mentioned, it typically has always been used for any work around the town pier. Any money unexpended at year end just reverts back into the fund to be appropriated at a subsequent town meeting.
Thank you. Questions for Brian? Joe?
Is this the same amount as last year, Brian? And if so, or if not, how do you determine the 367,000? Is it just, do you just carry it forward? Is it related to the typical expenses? What?
It typically has been the number that's been carried forward based on the recommendation from the deputy police chief and the Marine Department.
So they sort of kind of figure out how much work they want to do and,
That's correct.
okay.
Other questions? No, the motion is on the screen as you see. Does anyone want to make the motion as written on the screen?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Jill? Aye. Joanna? Aye. Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Again, unanimous. I'm getting better at saying unanimous. 25, please, Brian.
Yes, so the ambulance reserve fund, as the committee is aware, we do maintain an ambulance reserve fund, which is where all the revenue received for the ambulance services provided by the town are deposited. It does allow for the payment of 7 full-time firefighters, EMTs, and or paramedics in the fund, including all benefits, health insurance and payroll taxes and of that nature, as well as operating supplies to fit up the ambulances for supplies, Band-Aids, all of the, and any of the drugs that may be necessary to administer are all part of this and an allowable expense. Every 3 years, we do fund an ambulance from this, but there is no ambulance in the capital program plan this year. So the 806,000 would fund the 7 full-time firefighters and any operating supplies necessary for the ambulances.
Questions for Brian?
Yeah, Brian, is this, there's salary on this, that's in this number, does that include their full salary or is part of it allocated to the fire department?
It would take the 7, I think it's the 7 lowest paid firefighters and their EMTs, paramedics, they're all allocated 100% into this fund.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy?
The ambulance reserve fund, you said, gets funded by the charges for the use of the ambulance. What do we charge and to whom do we charge?
We charge anyone who is transported to the hospital or any ambulance runs that are made to any of the various, anywhere the ambulance would go. There's a billable schedule depending on the level of services that's provided, and it's billed to the insurance companies or to the individual if there is no insurance.
So do you just roughly know what the difference is, let's say, between negotiated insurance, Medicare, or just someone who doesn't have those things?
I don't have the rates right off the top of my head, Jeremy. I know that it brings in 600,000 to 900,000, depending on the amount of the service and the level. It's starting to bring in obviously more money since we have expanded to ALS. So I don't have the exact rates that we charge right in front of available at me right now, though. I can get them to the committee though.
Okay. And just, I'm just curious, why does this appropriation happen this indirect way as opposed to more directly where the money goes to the EMTs or to the firefighters? Why do we have it structured this way?
I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not sure that I follow the question, but communities with ambulances always, they run it through a reserve fund so that it does not become part of the general fund, and then they allocate positions into it to pay for those, for those services. So we're doing this consistent with all the communities that own or operate ambulance services.
Okay,
And also because it gets income, correct, Brian? It's a reserve
Right,
fund.
so if it was in the general fund, the income would be available for any expense, and this is dedicated specifically to full-time firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics, and the cost of running the ambulance service.
Other questions?
thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
Okay,
You see the motion up on the screen. May I have,
Motion to adopt.
thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Jill? Aye. Joanna? Aye. Jeremy?
aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Miss 26, please, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this appropriation would be for the ferry embarkation fee. I think that the ferry embarkation fee has been in the news a little bit with some communities wanting an increase in this. This money is used by the town for the funding of the CSO officers downtown in the core district. During the summer season, we're requesting an appropriation of $200,000 be appropriated from that fund for the purposes noted below: public safety, protection, emergency service, and any other purpose allowed by law. As I did mention previously, we have typically always used this to fund CSOs in the downtown core district, and any amount in excess of $200,000 is then transferred into the police department operating budget.
Questions? Jeremy?
How much is the ferry embarkation fee per person? How is it?
It's 50 cents on each ticket, I believe. Libby, it excludes commuter books, correct?
Correct.
And does Hyannis get part of that since they're the other half of it?
How many have they get off in
All
the
of
end?
all of the ports get a portion of it.
So of the 50 cents, what portion do we get in Nantucket?
I think we get whatever comes to us. I mean, what the 50 cents that leaves Hyannis, we get. And what goes back to Hyannis, they get.
So
So it'd be
50 cents
$1.
is the net that Nantucket gets?
Yes.
No. Cents on passengers getting off in Nantucket. Passengers getting off in Hyannis get 50 cents. If you depart Nantucket and land in Hyannis, Hyannis gets 50
That's
cents.
curious. And then so it's not really an embarkation fee, it's in.
Disembarkation.
Yeah, it's right.
Debarkation.
Debarkation, whatever.
And how much in total do we get of that, if you add up all those 50 cents?
It ranges every year from around, depending between 200 to 270,000, depending on utilization and timing of the receipts in a fiscal year. But it's always been around between 200 and 275, depending.
So roughly 350,000 people. 400,000.
Yes, that's roughly that, I would say.
Brian, now that we're digging into this, this is for both ferries, correct?
Yes.
And is it the same for the car? If you have a car, do you pay a higher fee?
No, it's per ticket,
It's just
ticket.
per
per
ticket.
passenger ticket.
Okay, thank you.
And if one ever had to change this, what's the mechanism to change the 50 cents to a higher number or a lower number?
Take special legislation, and there's discussion underway right now among some vineyard towns and some towns on the Cape, Falmouth specifically, as to increasing it to $1.50.
Whoa.
Okay.
We've
Any other-
discussed increasing it in the past, and the proceeds, as far as the select board has discussed it so far, would go towards, in their prior discussions, transportation, like NRTA expanded service or increased service.
Does the excess over 200,000 go into the general fund or the police budget or what? Assuming there is
He said the police budget.
police budget, is it?
It goes into the police budget should we, should there be an overage above that? And there typically has it. The police budget has the funding to account for it and handle it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. 27, county assessment, and we did have the county assessment presentation last week. So I don't think there has to be a significant discussion here, right?
Motion to adopt.
Any questions for Brian on this before because we did get the presentation just last week.
That's right.
No, okay, there was a motion to adopt.
Second.
Yes.
Thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, I. Stephen,
Aye.
thank you. Okay. All right. 28.
So this article would only be necessary, if the county review commission and couldn't come to an agreement on the budget, but since we've adopted the assessment, this is a take no action.
Okay. Perfect,
Motion to adopt.
thank you.
Second.
Motion.
Move to,
No, careful.
Nope.
Motion to take no action.
Oh, take no
Motion to
action, you're right.
Thank you.
yes.
Do I
Thank
have
you,
a
Chair.
second for that?
Second.
Good. Okay, Jill,
Aye.
Joanna. Aye. Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, racing along. 70 false private alarms.
Wait.
We did 77 next.
We got, hang on one
I
second.
know. Oh,
We're doing.
yeah, but I'm doing them in order.
Okay, great. Let me pull it up.
I'm checking.
I'm doing
I'm just
them
looking on the
in
attachments.
numerical order.
Okay.
Work with me, people. I was taught 70 came before 77. Is that the new math, Jill?
It's just the order.
I
it
know,
got
I know, it's
in,
the order that came in.
Which I'm very grateful you said the attachments. That made it a lot easier. Thank you.
That was very good. Thank you as well.
Okay. Brian, we're gonna let you keep talking because
I honestly, Madam Chair, would love to talk about this article, but I don't honestly know that much about it, to be very candid.
I couldn't.
Since it really is not a lot of financial implications in the changes.
So
as
I
understand them.
can a little bit help with it. Of course, I don't have any of my town meeting stuff at home. I could dig it out. This came forward from the fire department and they've been having some trouble collecting or assessing a fine for false private alarms. And this language is intended to assist them with making it easier for them to do that and to hopefully cease or reduce the number of false alarms that they are dealing with. It allows for the fee to be set by the select board rather than having it be in the town code so that it could be raised to be something a little bit more meaningful. And I think it just makes some other wording changes like user, for example. They've had some trouble with who's the if the added wording there specifies that like sometimes the occupant of the premises is not the owner.
Mhm.
And it's a lot easier if the owner is the responsible party for the fine.
And it changed it to $300 instead of 100,
Or as set by the select board.
or is set by the select board.
Can I ask the question? When I used to have an alarm in my house, when it was feasible that the police could get there in time, it went to a central station first, and then it went to the police if there was a need for that. Because the central station would find out if it was a false alarm.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have that here. I
No,
mean,
Mine does that.
No, we do have them here, but this article covers both central station and any kind of alarm.
well, central station, there shouldn't be a fee because it's nothing to do with the town.
No, but say
No,
if it
false
goes to a
alarm.
central station and nobody answers, the owner doesn't answer, the person on the call list, it then automatically goes to the fire department.
Right.
Okay,
So it's the bump.
Gotcha.
right? So if you get a call from Alarm New England and you don't, as an example, don't get the call, and then, and it's a fire,
Then
then it's gonna go to the fire department, and they're gonna race out, and it's just you were watching Netflix,
Gotcha.
so you didn't answer your phone.
How many of these false alarms they have?
A lot.
Probably because
I-
of faulty equipment.
The reason it came to me was because the chief said that on one night in the fall, they had like something like 3 or 4 alarms at the same house.
And it just went off and they went out, because
Yeah.
nobody, the owner didn't pick up the phone probably from,
Well, the owner was not there. Of course. No caretaker was willing to go there.
So if the wind hits the window and it sets off the alarm and then
Right.
they call the police and it keeps doing it because who's gonna stop the wind from it? Yeah.
And well, and this is also, police alarm, police calls too, right, Libby? This is,
This is,
they're
this,
fine for police visit, for multiple police visits or multiple fire visits.
this is specific to fire, I believe, but I guess I have to double check that.
This
Now,
is
private
fire.
intrusion alarm system. I think the first page and a half is the police
False
department.
private alarm. Yeah, I guess it's combined.
Yeah,
I have a question. I saw something in here that if there is a continuing event, it's $300 a day. And it's every day. And I didn't understand what that was.
Well, if
Yeah.
somebody's off island and their alarm keeps going off every day.
No, there was, I don't think I'm mixing this up. Why can't it?
well, it says is determined by the select board.
So there was the fine, but the specific fine, and then on top of that, there was. Where did it go?
What is the final?
I read it earlier.
Yeah, no, it's on the second page.
It is.
Any person who violates any provision of this bylaw shall be subject to a fine of $300, punishable in accordance with chapter 1 of the code of the town of Nantucket. Each day that a violation continues shall be considered a separate offense.
I did not understand that. That seemed like that was in addition to an individual fine, and I didn't understand how all that flowed.
I'm
Or
sorry,
why?
where are you?
it's 2613 violations and penalties, Libby.
You know, it also sort of, conflicts with 26.8 consequences for fire or false alarms. This is under really the police department visits, but the 26.8B is modified to delete the fee of 100 and say as determined by the select board. But then 2613 has, as Jeremy pointed out, this $300 fine for continued alarm. Anyway, I'm just wondering whether the language is the way that.
I think it needs to be
the-
looked at
the sponsor-
again.
The sponsor wants it to be.
I also have another issue that's not just in this language, but I have had for 3 years. Where the police have sent me a bill. And they sent me an administrative bill and then some false alarm stuff. And we've been off of the system for over a decade. So I don't know, I get a little worried that this is the full revenue act.
Okay, I think this, forgetting Jeremy's problem, I think this makes sense. I mean, if you don't get
Oh,
it fixed and your alarm keeps going off both alarms every day, even though it's the same thing, each day that it happens, you're gonna get charged.
It
Well,
sounds like
that's-
this is a maximum of $300 a day is sort of, right?
Right.
So they get called out 10 times. That's not gonna be
No,
$1,000, it's gonna be.
no, it'd be $3,000. If it was over, each one was a different day.
Oh,
See, I
each
think
day.
that's-
I
yeah.
mean, the same day.
Oh,
It
okay.
seems like there's a maximum.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how I'm
yeah,
reading that.
Yeah.
And this is just for residential.
I don't know that.
For everything. I don't think it's just residential.
I think false alarms tend to be more in residential than they would. be in
Libby, is
commercial.
is this residential and commercial?
I honestly, I just put this in for some other departments that I thought would be the explainers of it. So why don't we have
Why don't
an
we wait?
explainer come to your next meeting and they can explain it?
Okay, and then at the same time, if, when we make a motion, if we have to amend get 26-8B to reconcile with 26-13, then our motion can do that,
If that's actually,
if that's necessary.
Detector, was it private and a public?
All of a sudden, I was thinking, someone could be away,
Okay,
they make a mistake. but
Thank
They
you.
could be, wait for 10 days to get it.
So he's keeping you on that, they should.
Absolutely, they should.
They should have somebody, their caretaker should have to go shut it off, that's all.
I don't agree with that.
Well, you're entitled to your vote.
so
One
let's,
man, one vote.
let's suggest you live next door to that alarm going off for 10 days in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, trust me, I don't like alarms going off. And I do much to make sure that we don't have a problem for that. But I think $300 a day, every day adding up can add up to quite a lot of money.
I think one of the problems that we have here with all of our enforcement is that if it's too low, it doesn't get fixed.
Like parking tickets,
Yeah.
the price of
Yeah,
parking.
it's a parking ticket on the guy's Rolls Royce.
It's cheaper than paying a parking, buying a place to park.
Okay, Article 77.
Okay,
Now I gotta go backwards.
Go backwards, Jill.
me too.
I have every confidence you can do it, Jill.
Oh, I thought this one was kind of funny.
Another thing,
Yeah,
there's two problems.
there we
It
go.
wasn't just one. I tell you what, I-
Jeremy, one conversation, please.
no, thanks.
So we either talk about it or we don't talk
Sorry,
about it.
sorry.
Thank you.
I actually have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What if we had a town meeting on a Saturday?
We do have a town, we've had town meetings on Saturdays.
Yeah.
The clerk's office is physically
her-
closed.
Okay.
So she
I
can,
mean, that's my understanding. Libby, you can enlighten us on. this.
Again, this came from somebody else that we just put in, but, I guess a lot of the clerks around the state are accepting this provision, which it mostly, I think, has to do with, mail-in voting and voting in, person.
Ah,
Early voting is what I'm trying to say. And it makes it so they don't necessarily have to be open on Saturdays for early voting. Or voter registration.
Or for the purposes of calculating time frame, I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds like it gives, in effect, doesn't count Saturday as a business day. You only
Correct.
count Monday through Friday as business days for, you have 15 days, if you have 15 days to return some piece of paper.
Saturday
but
doesn't
Monday,
count.
Saturday and Sunday don't count.
Saturdays are a legal holiday.
I'm going.
I'm
Other-
fine with that.
Any other questions or comments?
How does that affect payroll?
It has nothing to do with payroll.
You're calling it a legal holiday.
It's just for the purpose of specific filings.
Doesn't matter.
It's only for the purpose of a specific
Calculating the time
filing. You're
frame.
gonna say Saturdays are a legal holiday for this person, but that's the only thing it's for.
It's for voter registration. That's really what it's all for.
Okay.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Jill?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Thank you, Denise, I. Okay, 80. Now, I had texted Jason Libby to see if somebody from the select board was going to appear. And I don't see anybody in our little sidebar here to talk about this. So I guess they're punting it over to you.
Well, I am not the sponsor of it, as you can see, but
Yes.
I can tell you that the discussion revolved around the amount of time it takes a person who becomes elected to the select board to understand everything that's going on. And by the time they do that, say on their first term is over. So they felt that a 5-year term would help alleviate that. Town council did advise that there is no other municipality in the state that has 5-year select board terms.
Okay, thank you, Libby. I'm assuming that the select board are all in favor of this. Did they have to vote on it?
They
I
did.
didn't-
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and check the vote. It did at least get a majority.
Okay, okay. I didn't see that portion of select board
I
meeting.
did go to this.
Enlighten us who voted against it.
I don't remember. I know there was debate about it.
I heard about 6 weeks ago, I was at one of them, and there was debate about it, but I don't know who came out one way or the other. But there were good arguments both ways.
So questions, comments?
5 years seems like an appropriate sentence. I think that's good.
I agree.
I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
feel like it really limits the pool of people, right? Because this is a serious time
It's a big
commitment.
Yeah.
And I think in the last few years, we've had people, it would be better to go on for 3 years and get reelected than it is to go on for 5 years and be on for 5 years, I think.
So-
Because if you want to go, then you can go.
Brooke
So,
had a
so
different
the other
point-
side of that, sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Stephen. Brooke had a different point of view, which was most people will do one and done, 5 years. But to have to run again is onerous and expensive just to get in more than 3 years. And 6 years is is longer than 5 years. So 5 years, so that was the logic of the other part of the math. So I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just
Right.
expressing what I'd heard discussed.
I just-
Stephen, go ahead, sorry.
Well, yeah, thank you, and sorry about that. Two points. One, a 5-year term is what we ask and expect of planning board members, precisely because the learning curve is so long. Second thing is recent precedent shows that it's not only possible, but maybe not frowned upon to leave early if life circumstances change. We've seen that at 2 of the highest boards on the island recently. So I'm not sure that somebody who really wants to make a change in the near term, say the next 3 years, will be turned off by the idea that it's a 5-year term.
Jeremy,
What about the staggering? 'Cause
then it
it's
will stagger. So
'cause
5
it's-
years will be 1 per year instead of the
So this will
2-2-1
be
that it is now.
Implemented in a way so that the output is staggered. Is that how it's
Correct.
gonna work?
That was the intent. I believe that was the
Yeah.
intention. It'd be 1 every year. And then that way, it's right now it's 2-2-1, right? Because it's an uneven number and over 3 years.
Is there a way to amend this to pay these hardworking people more appropriately? than
We don't do that.
Well,
Well, I know we historically have not done that.
No, we don't amend.
that would be scope
Yeah.
creep.
All right.
That would be outside the scope of this article. So you can make an article smaller.
No, so the question is, for the special town meeting in the fall, Jeremy, you can put a citizen's article forward that
Yeah,
raises. the
They
pay
do
of the
that
select
special
board.
meeting? in the fall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short-term rental.
I thought it was kind of implied last night. What
No,
they
it's
don't.
definitely on
Okay,
November 7th.
okay.
Joy.
My thought on this is, I have mixed feelings either way, whether it's too long or, but I'm wondering whether as the finance committee, this might be one of those articles where, we do a take no action. And in effect say, listen, we're not telling you, the voters of town meeting, which way to vote on this, and in effect, let the select board, if they really feel strongly about this, they're gonna have to stand up and say, this is why we want 5 years instead of 3 years. But I don't think we should be telling the voters what to do.
I agree with you, Jim.
I think it's a barrier to entry. I really do. I mean, I think if you want to encourage anyone who's younger to do this, I think requiring a 5-year commitment is difficult. And
Or you end up
know,
having
if
people-
we're encouraging women or minorities or people who have less resources, 5 years is really a long time.
Until they get Jeremy's pay rise and then it'll be fine.
How does this intersect with all the efforts that are being undertaken to change the form of government?
Yeah, so if this could end up being a moot point
Yes.
if we end up in town council.
Yeah.
So that's true. But until we officially end up in town council, we have to operate as if nothing's going to change other than through something like this.
And how would this, when would this be effective?
Then start it right away.
I believe it
think.
gets started,
Yeah.
it gets started.
Act shall take effect upon passage.
So that means that the people who are there, their terms get adjusted to the balance of 5 years?
I don't
Can you
know.
do that?
I'm sure
Can't do
they
that.
No,
The
they would
new
run
elections.
out and start it, and the new person would start.
It comes with a new
So by the
election.
time it started, it would be a moot point.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah.
Is there precedence for this committee's purview on issues that are, let's say, so enormous? This is an enormous political issue that we do what you suggest, where you give it back to the voters and say.
Take no action. Yeah.
So we take no action?
So let me see, are we ready? Is the discussion over? Are we ready to put a motion forward and discuss the motion?
Motion to take no action.
Stephen, do you have anything?
Anything else, Stephen, before we?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from some of the select board members who thought that this was a good idea and hear the reasons why. I think it's a matter too important to dispense of so quickly.
Okay,
I
so we
agree.
will defer it to another meeting and we'll get a select board person to show up. Okay,
Denise,
Go back and if somebody could send us the date
hi
when
Libby.
they talked about it.
I'm gonna suggest something very unconventional right now, which is that one of the people who helped write the false alarm bylaw article is nearby me. And I thought maybe I am at home sick right now, but I thought maybe that person could quickly explain that bylaw to you.
We look forward to Deputy Chief Gibson joining
Well,
this.
how do you know that's who it is?
Yeah, I'm gonna move out of the way so he can explain.
We might live in proximity of each other. All right, that would be fine, Libby. We'd be happy to get clarity now. It works. Charlie, you're up.
Hello, well, I guess the general theme for this false alarm bylaw was written in, I believe, 1989, quite a while ago. And the thrust of it was to get the police out of monitoring private alarm systems and having people accountable for false alarms. So it was, and the police have been charging for these fees and alarms since then. The fire department at the time didn't want to charge people for false alarms, and it was mainly geared for commercial box alarms at guest houses and restaurants and things like that. Technology has changed. There's no more box alarms at guest houses. They're all private systems now. And people are now using fire alarms in their residence, just like burglar alarms. So we had to sort of retool the bylaw to accommodate those technology changes. And the fire alarm changes is basically to mimic what the police have been doing. We cleaned up a couple of just some language in there regarding the effective date of this bylaw, which was back in 1989. So we took some of that language out. And also we had the fine schedule in the bylaw itself. And there's a general change throughout the town code not to put the fines into the bylaw itself, but to allow the select board after a public hearing, they could set the fines as they deem fit. So if a fine needed to be reduced or increased, it could then be done at a public hearing instead of having to wait for a town meeting to go through this whole process. So that's some of the technical changes that were required. The general theme is that people will be billed for false alarms if they get more than a couple a year. And I know for the fire department, it is extremely expensive. They have to send out a fire truck with 3 or 4 firemen on it. Then we have to pay for overtime to backfill the fire station that they're out chasing down these fire alarms that are at these private residences. So the new fire chief, wants to start holding people accountable for that. And that's basically the changes.
Thank you, Charlie. Questions for Charlie?
I guess-
Jeremy, wait, Jeremy had his
Oh,
hand up
sorry.
first, Peter. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Again, I get back to this section 26-13. Which says, I understand that the select board can now implement a new fee for each violation. And I got no problem with that. But what I don't understand is in section 26-13, there now seems to be an additive fine where it says anyone who violates this bylaw is subject to a fine of $300, and it can continue for every day that it's a separate offense. So I didn't know what that was for.
Well, that is for if someone is tampering with an alarm system or doing something in contravention of the bylaw. It doesn't affect the false alarm section. There's some general penalties in there for tampering with an alarm system, for causing a false alarm intentionally, and that's what that fine is for. The fines or the charge for false alarms is not a fine, it's a charge for false alarms. That's a separate section. The fine is for more of an intentional or negligent acts, and that's what that fine is for.
I might just suggest if possible, that might be clarified.
It is clarified if you're the one who has to enforce it, and this is a very standard section in all of the bylaws that have penalties to them. Say it's in effect for chapter 1 of the town, that's the non-criminal section of the town code. So all of the town bylaws that have a penalty for a violation all have the same language, and $300 is the maximum for a civil penalty, and this is the same language that's in basically all of the bylaws. It's in here for consistency, and that's why town council suggested it be changed.
So effectively, Charlie, what we don't have in front of us is actually chapter 1 of the town code. So that's why I think the confusion is because it appears that it's just for this article, but it's actually referring back to chapter 1, which lists noise violations, blah, 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 Board of Health. It lists everything, correct?
That's correct. We wouldn't find it in chapter 1. You would find it in all the other enforcement bylaws that would refer back to chapter 1. And chapter 1 will say it's a violation in accordance with chapter General Law 140-21D, which is the non-criminal provisions that it's basically you can get a ticket for up to $300 and you have a right of appeal. You can go to the district court and the clerk magistrate. There is all due process associated with this, that you can have a hearing on your fine, and that's all set out in the statute and in the town code. So this language here is in just about every other town bylaw that has a penalty to it.
Thank you. Peter?
Chief, so if I have somebody has a house and they have an alarm system and the alarm system has a short. So it goes off and they're notified that there's a problem. They call whoever they call, hopefully, and he comes and it doesn't get fixed and it goes off again the next day. And it keeps going off because they can't fix it and they don't shut it off. They're fined $300 a day for that?
Not necessarily. There's provisions in there that once you understand that there's a problem, what you do as a good homeowner is call your alarm company and say, stop calling the fire department on our false alarms. This is the whole intent of this thing, is to force these property owners to be responsible for their alarms. If we have this all the time, that the alarm keeps going off, we call the caretakers, oh yeah, we know there's a problem. Well, call your alarm company and tell them to stop signaling the fire department or the police department. It's easily done. They just call the caretaker instead. Oh, there's a problem. Stop calling the fire station. And this is what we're trying to solve here.
Okay, no, I agree with it 100%. I'm just trying to understand. So it really, each case would be handled separately if there's a multiple alarm, multiple offender. Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
how-
and again, this penalty would not come in, this one section 2613 only applies to intentional negligent acts. It does not apply to the false alarm section.
Up to them to decide who did that, who was intentional.
Yeah, got it.
I know we're beating this thing to death, but, okay, so 2613 refers to chapter 1 that has all these fines and penalties for violating this code. Does 2613 also, but the way that this article is written, it's sort of the police department is the first half and the fire department is kind of the second half, starting with 2618, I guess. Towards the end, there's 2630 that has all been deleted, but there's no comparable violations and penalties as were stuck in 2613. Is that not needed? Because
No,
26
that is
Oh,
why
thank-
2613 was changed to say this chapter, because it was sort of individually done. So we took out 2630 and then
Okay.
put it back into 2613.
We
All right.
took out
Got
2625C.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, sorry.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah.
We're good.
So,
Motion to adopt.
Second.
thank you. Okay, roll call. Any further discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Thank you. Jill?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, I.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you for creative.
That was my creative thinking for the day. And I wanted to clarify one quick thing back to the ferry fee. Just FYI, all of the embarkation fees are collected by the state. The state then reallocates them out to the port towns. Nantucket gets 50 cents for every ticket.
that comes to Nantucket or for every
That
ticket?
comes to Nantucket. We get 50 cents.
Okay, thank you, Libby. Okay, Article 85. Look at Maria, she is so far ahead of us. Excellent. All right, so 85 is basically to make sure that the state legislature understands we're serious about changing this.
Yeah,
But
it
my-
has, it's just that it's a submit.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been acted upon yet at the legislature, but it's already been approved by town meeting at least once.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Motion to adopt. Thank you, Joanna. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
Am I reading it correctly that the requirement for a town meeting article is now 50 signatures and a special town meeting is 100 signatures? Was that in the article that was?
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but not now. Oh, if this passes.
Right. No,
Yes.
it's, we're hopeful. it
I know, but Daybreak seemed to thought it was good now, and I was hoping it would be just kind of snuck through there. Anyway, okay,
Okay,
so we have a motion to adopt on the table. There's no further comments. Okay, may I have,
I think it's seconded around.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, aye. Thank you.
Is this really our last one of the day?
Yes, and 86 is exactly what we put in last year. On the.
The management, breast management practices.
Yeah, so last year, remember when we had all the discussion around fertilizer and we were concerned as a committee that the Fertilizer Act would probably not pass, but we didn't want to lose the opportunity to make, to continue to enhance our fertilizer best management practices. So we made a comment, our motion was effectively what this is. Libby will happily correct me if I'm getting this wrong. So, because when I read it, I thought, I've seen this before, because we spent a lot of time on this.
Right.
So it's to make sure that if Joe Manella's article doesn't pass the state level, that Nantucket still has some ability to do something about this. So is my understanding. Libby,
Yeah,
Feel free to-
that's exactly Denise. Thank you.
look at that, I pay attention.
Good memory.
Well, I just remember the very, I spent a lot of time thinking about fertilizer. last year. A lot of time.
We had the lobbyist at our meeting.
We
Right,
did.
it took a lot, yeah.
So this is just,
It
this
was
is
about
just
holding
basic,
a Town meeting on this too.
yes, there was, and it was poking the bear, but that's a separate thing.
Literally, and
So this was our motion basically last year. But now the select board is taking it up, taking the flag and run with it. Any questions or comments about this?
Nope.
Stephen, anything from you? No, okay, all right, may I have a motion?
motion to adopt.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Jill?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay. So that brings to the close the section of our meeting today about warrant articles. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Brian and Libby, for doing this with us. We appreciate it. Our next meeting is Monday, February 6th at 4 p.m. We are in the community room. Woo-hoo. It's a public hearing, so we will go through each article. I'll either Libby or myself will figure that out. We'll just call out the article and see if anyone has anything to say about it, and then we move on. So it will be 100 and, well, of the ones we've motioned now, maybe about 10. So it'll be 95 articles that I'll call out. I won't call out the ones that have already been motioned.
So we're just getting public reaction. We're not, no feedback from us on what they say.
Yeah, no, we can.
Oh, we can.
We can discuss it,
Is it
absolutely.
Monday or Tuesday?
It's Monday. Monday, February 6th
Yeah.
at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Yep,
Right.
Joint meeting with select board?
not until after all of this is done.
Do we also have a meeting on the seventh?
No,
No.
not next week.
No, not next week.
We have the ninth, Thursday.
We have the Thursday. We have Monday and Thursday next week.
No, I didn't. know.
Okay.
And this is at 4 o'clock, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
at the community room at Four Fairgrounds.
But Thursday's back here.
Yeah.
But the week of the 13th, it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I mean. Maria-
So Monday, it's just anybody that wants to come talk about any of
Yeah,
them.
we will do on Monday. We have gotten, thanks to Joe and Stephen, we have gotten the motions as we discussed about Articles 81 and 82 in the comments. Remember, we were going to amend, we're going to write a motion that would amend Curtis's wording, so that way it could be a motion. I'm guessing we'll get to motion to adopt. I don't like to, tell the end of the book before we read the whole book. And so Stephen and Joe have done a nice job of getting us that. I sent it then today to John Giorgio and he forwarded it to Sarah. And so what's been written is fine. We'll discuss it on Monday and see if the committee is okay with it. And if that's okay, then that'll be our motion. So we will motion 81 on Monday. I'm expecting 82 we already did, but we have a comment and I've already let Curtis know by email that we're going to be doing that on Monday. In addition to, maybe we'll just do that up front rather than making him sit through me reading out every article. Okay.
It's a glutton for punishment. eh?
He is. So that's, that will happen on Monday as well. Committee reports. Joanna, you're up.
Let's see. I know that there was some discussion at the last meeting we had for crack about the budget and what was allocated for the budget to support coastal resiliency. I expect that to be an ongoing topic at that forum. And then in terms of, well, I think the crack committee is really trying to figure out how to take that plan and break it down and really define what it means to the general population of Nantucket, and then hopefully start to disseminate some information. That's, I think, where we're at.
Okay.
And then I think in terms of contract review committee, we have debated very thoroughly, if not exhaustively, all of the grant applications. And we have recommendations, but we are waiting till the applications are finalized for the cannabis part of the grant before we recommend the whole slate.
Okay,
Because there's one we would like to move off of one pile and into another pile. And so I think we have a meeting next week, or maybe the 16th of February. And then Dorothy was asking if she could come and talk to us towards the end of our cycle. Because if people are away during school vacation, et cetera, et cetera.
that's
On
fine.
the contract review, this is where we're allocating grants to various not-for-profits that need the
Yes.
money. How much money gets allocated? for that?
$650,000 and then another $175,000 in the cannabis grant, but that is specifically for drug substance abuse education.
And how many grant requests are there for that $800,000?
Well, we're gonna look at it in two different buckets. There was probably like, well, I can tell you.
Was it 20 people or something?
There's usually about 12 to 15.
Yeah, not many when I was on it, but,
I have my list right here, there with me.
and then it list goes down over the cannabis use.
Here we go. All right, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 requests this year. And their request totaled $840,514. So we had to cut that. We had to cut it down to $650.
But every year it's more requests than
Oh,
there is
yeah, sure.
available.
But some of the
funds.
people are gonna go to the cannabis. one.
Only one. So we actually, this is premature. I'm not gonna name names. We're actually going to not entertain two of the applications
Okay,
because we didn't feel they were a good fit. And then there's one that we're gonna put over to the cannabis grant, if we can.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Peter,
We had our first meeting since December, yesterday, and
for short-term
short-term
rentals,
rentals.
just for the.
Yeah, and I would say we
Big
spent
audience.
1 hour just talking about the 3 hours, 1 hour talking about when the next meeting was gonna be. And then we spent another hour talking about data, which we've been talking about since the first meeting. And then the third hour was basically compilation of the first 2 hours. So we really didn't get very far, and it's very difficult. It's a difficult subject and difficult group, and it's there's challenges, and some people in the group wanted to spin off a committee on their own and not have somebody not a moderator, and we can't do that. I mean, the whole concept of this thing was to have a non-partial moderator. And I think she is non-partial, whether she's good or not is a separate discussion, but she's certainly non-partial. But it's very difficult. I mean, this whole thing is, coming up to the November 7th, we have to come up with something. And the real issue is, and it still comes back to, is we really don't know what the problem is. And, not knowing what the problem is, it's hard to come up with a solution. So it's, and so it really comes back to, maybe there's no problem, that you don't know. I'm not professing either way. I'm just saying it's very difficult to have a group of, what are we, 9 people, Joe, something like that. To talk about something that they really don't know what direction they're really supposed to be going, and it's very awkward. And and it scares me because for 2 reasons. One is because I don't know if we're ever going to come up with anything that we can compromise and agree on that makes sense, whether it be a bylaw or a zoning change. And number 2 is I'm very nervous about what's going to happen at town meeting with the 2 articles that are already, well, one of them is fine, but the one that the Kilbert article is, if that gets passed, it totally circumvents everything. And,
Right.
it's a whole different
Accessory
problem. Yeah.
And is there a particular constituency that actually wants that to happen?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Of course.
what
The
I
planning
have
board-
observed
Over
is,
here. That's why that group exists.
Yeah.
Planning board recommended motion not to adopt on that article.
Right. But, listen, we're at a town meeting and somebody
Yeah.
calls for a vote.
Yep.
And
Question.
Yes,
Are you all talking at all about like health, safety in the regulations for that?
we don't do the.
You're not
regulations.
doing any of
No,
that.
the regulations
Okay.
are separate.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if that was gonna come up with,
Yeah.
with the police and the health department and smoke certs and
Mhm.
COs, and I didn't know. if
Yeah,
that
there's a
was
lot of
gonna
stuff
be-
there, but we,
You're just
As I
talking
s-
about who can rent and who can't.
basically.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And whether things get grandfathered, don't get grandfathered, and the scary, another scary part is that, they want to know by, if we do it by area of the island. So we have a different rule for in town and a different rule for Tom Nevers, which to me is really dangerous, probably not legal.
Probably not legal.
Yeah, so it's, and we haven't had really any legal comments. We haven't had any real zoning comments from the professionals. This is all just these 9 people just kicking around ideas when we have a chance to kick around ideas. So it's,
Do you have the data yet, or is that still being?
no, the
pulled together?
data is still being pulled together. I think we're probably a month away.
But you have,
Well,
but
they're-
the local brokers are giving you the data, right?
Yeah, but that's another problem because you have the narrow, the realtors data, the town data, and any other data that's out there, and amalgamating it, putting it all together is a challenge. And it really hasn't
Data hasn't been collected yet. It hasn't been requested.
even been requested, no?
The
No.
NAREB data?
Okay, I'm not involved with that.
We've agreed internally among NAREB members that everybody would participate when there's a request. But, we haven't been asked. So
We were told, Steve, we were told that there were, Steven, I'm sorry, we were told that there was, I think, 12 realtor firm, 12 brokers that had agreed to participate. Was there any sort of?
yeah,
survey done?
like I said, there's agreement to participate. There's no
request.
there's no request. I mean,
Okay, well, we were hiring, this is another, we're hiring another outside firm to do the data analysis. And I don't think they've hired anybody yet. So it's hard to request when you don't have anybody to ask, because the stuff we got from Granicus was terrible. And so we really need a third party. It's very, very complicated trying to pull this all together.
Yeah.
Just my experience in situations where people are of disparate perspective, and you can't get to commonality of interest or commonality of language to bridge the divide. Usually it's because one party doesn't want you to have success, which you, I think, understand. So how are you guys getting prepared for that Armageddon, where you're not going to get to a resolution, but you might get to town meeting? Will sane voices be able to present something at town meeting that people have I guess, a choice?
There's 2 political groups on the island, one pro short-term rentals, and one against short-term rentals, and I'm sure they're both gonna speak at town meeting, and that's, at least there's those groups. It's not up to, we're not allowed to do that, although the one person who represents the anti-short-term rental group has spoken out loud about her opinions, et cetera, and signed petitions, et cetera, which is really something that we all, rest of us agreed not to do. So we're kind of trying to be a independent group, but it's not quite working that way.
I mean, Jeremy, to your point, what could easily happen based on what's happening so far is that this group cannot get a warrant article together because they just can't get to consensus on what the warrant article should be.
That's
So that to me would be the Armageddon, right? That
Yes.
they're not even able to put something forward after the hours they've invested in this, and it's hours and hours.
Yeah.
And that would be just a shame. It will be more than a shame. It would be just stupid. So.
But they, as Peter says, they can't totally
But yeah,
agree on
right.
what the problem is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's highly likely.
Well, I mean, you have one group who's convinced that it's a huge problem and needs to be limited rental. You know, and why they're called short-term rentals as opposed to just rentals, I don't know.
Or seasonal. rentals
Seasonal
even.
rental.
Yeah.
whatever. And then, you know, sort of the other parties are kind of like.
well, there were
"Let's
30
do
days.
more. It's a great idea, you know, more rentals are good, so.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It is, and we very much appreciate your service.
I dread it.
Yeah,
It's one of those things that, you know, I love doing these meetings and getting, participating in the town, but it's very frustrating when you're doing something that you don't know if there's gonna be an outcome.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So,
Okay,
Thank you, Peter.
and what about the senior center?
we haven't done anything really since December, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
But I spoke to Libby actually today, and we think we're gonna have some stuff going on shortly.
okay, great, thank you. In terms of other business, I just have one item. I got an email from Gail Walker, who asked if we want to have a presentation from her experts. She's being, the outdoor lighting and the noise are scheduled actually for February 16th meeting. And did we want a presentation? And I said I would ask the committee if they wanted to see a presentation from her experts as part of the discussion. And
You're planning for us to make motion that night on lighting and noise, potentially.
potentially, I think we can get to noise that night. I think we'll get to lighting that night. I mean, the one person who isn't here, unfortunately, Chris, was the person that wanted to have a much more deeper dive. I am suggesting that that's just not feasible. That, you know, if anybody needs a deeper dive and just, we can't spend 2 days on this. I mean, I'm talking days, not 2 times 2 hours. If we as a group don't have the 2 days to carve out to be all things lighting, then, you know, I personally, if I needed that much information, I would abstain from voting on it then, because I just say, look, I can't make a decision. I don't have enough information. So I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that's how I'd want to approach it. So,
We're
Jill?
more concerned, I'm
Will
sorry.
she email us a presentation the way, you know, Hillary sent one or mailed it or before then, and then we could look at it, and if we had questions from that booklet or
sure. I
whatever
can-
that is,
Yeah.
that might be helpful.
That's a good
One thing
idea.
I don't feel like the committee understands is, and I throw myself in that too, as I was evaluating all my lights when I went home that night. But, you know, the wattage versus the lumens and how much you can have on your property, it is severely restricted. There are flashlights that shine 5 times brighter than the amount of light she wants you to have outside, so that kind of information would just be helpful so people know.
Okay, so I'll ask her if they're present, rather than having them do a presentation on the day, to send us the presentations in advance, because it's 2 weeks to go, right? And with that, then we can ask questions of the experts on the day.
I think there's 2 things. One is the enforcement, which I think is the biggest issue with all these, the noise, the light, et cetera, because enforcement is tough, but the lighting thing is so confusing. And so beyond just reading a piece of paper and saying you have to have down lighting and it can't be more than 900 watts, whatever the number is. It's so confusing that no one's gonna ever read it. And for us to get another download and dump of that type of information, I don't think makes a lot of sense. I think we should ask her to give us a very concise summary of the article that would be given to the town for people to act on, rather than looking at all this data that she's got, which really is, I don't think, relevant to what she's trying to do or what we would want to look at. That's my opinion, but
I can also ask for a 1-page summary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the things that I'd like to know is if, like to Jill's point about the intensity of the lights.
Yeah.
That you're allowed to have versus what people have, like an example of that.
Yeah.
Like, even if she brought a light and showed us, this is a down light that can exist right now, and this is what we're proposing.
Well, I was gonna say, actually, Jill, and now your comment, Sean, I mean, if they could show us a picture of a house that is appropriate, is dark skies appropriately lit, and then a
Maybe.
house, you know, like an egregiously overlit house in their opinion.
Yeah.
Show us a couple of pictures so that we, you know, am I gonna walk into a tree in one regard and the other one, you know, the space shuttle's gonna fly in because it's so bright? I don't know. So,
That'd be cool, getting the shuttle to land in New
Yeah.
York, Joe.
I mean, but how big of a property you wanna see? She addresses.
She could show a couple of examples, but yeah, to your
Yeah.
point.
I mean, I think the stuff, like the complaints or the letters, well, they came from all over the island. but,
Yeah.
You know, I think people in town are definitely affected by people whose neighbors' lights might be too bright, or they don't have shade, or it's not downlighting, right?
Right.
It's
Or people leaving their lights
spotlights,
on,
the big spotlights.
Yeah.
people leave their lights on all winter.
Right.
And it's not, they're not here and their spotlights on the outside of their house are on. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
I mean,
okay.
having said this is gonna, I think this
It's
is
gonna
gonna pass.
pass. Me too.
yeah.
I mean, this is one of those articles that, I mean, we've got, I don't know, you've probably all gotten them too, the number of emails I've had from people
Oh, yeah.
passionately
Me too. Got one
supporting
while
this
during the meeting.
is, so I just think it's the kind of article that, you know, at town meeting, you get a couple of folks
Well,
exuding their passion and the crowd just.
on
runs.
that, then I hope that the people know what they're voting on too. I mean, you've got to address Christmas lights, you've got to address, which she does. You've got to address you got to address lights for like the paddle courts and the basketball courts. I mean, people that play sports outside at
But
night.
I thought that I thought she said that those athletic things were exempted.
She said they have to turn off, I think, by 10 o'clock or
Mhm.
something. It's not unreasonable, but.
Yeah.
You know, they just built brand new tennis courts, and I drove by actually to see if they were in, and they look mostly done, but. I didn't see any lighting there yet, so I'd be curious to ask Diane O'Neill about that at the high school.
Okay,
And maybe the other thing I thought about was what would be an average cost
right.
that a homeowner might be expected to spend on whatever compliance would
Well,
look like.
that's what, so Stephen asked what I thought was an excellent, I mean, everybody asks excellent questions, sorry. But Stephen asked,
Definitely excellent.
Stephen was first among equals at the meeting, let's do it that way. Where he asked, you know, basically, how many people do you think are out of compliance on the island, just, you know, thumbnail? And what would it cost? And Gail was quite enthusiastic in her answer, saying she has no idea, and how would she know that? And having been a former auditor, you do a sample, you go to 3 neighborhoods, you do a little quick sample test, and you know, extrapolate from there if you want to, or even just say, I did these 3 neighborhoods of this many houses, and here's the examples I found. And, you know, from not going on their property because I can't, but from what I could see, I estimate it would cost them about $500 to make the change. You know, it's, again, you could poke holes in it, but at least gives you the size of the elephant,
Right.
right?
Well,
So,
And also, as I think Chris brought up last time, it's a little different. And again, you're talking about there's recreation, there's the town lights. It's very different. I mean, the town and the school and. You know, I'm sorry, but what does Charlie Gibson say about dimming these lights at the school when they're trying to prevent crime from happening there? Like, I have
think
issue
that
with some of that
she-
stuff.
Yeah, so I think that was kind of addressed when she made a couple of years ago, or whenever that happened, when she gave the woman who's the facilities person at the school.
Diane O'Neill.
She gave her very explicit feedback about all of that, and I don't think that there was anything that said that increase or decrease in that lighting was gonna affect crime. It wasn't that immeasurable, the level of it wasn't proportionate.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for the lights at the school to be dimmer. I just don't know, is that realistic? That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Okay, I think, anything from you, Jeremy, because everybody's kind of waiting, or Stephen, and
I,
go ahead.
the same point been making on lights, but back to your original question, the expert on sound. Because you asked about that, and because she wanted to know.
No, I
whether-
didn't actually ask about an expert on sound.
No, but I thought that, the person putting forward the swimming pump issue wanted to know whether their expert on noise sound should come and present to us. I thought you said that earlier.
I didn't say that.
Then I misheard, I'm sorry.
I said we are going to talk about noise on the
Okay.
16th. And we got a response from Chief Gibson, which basically said the equipment they have can't isolate the sound of
Right.
one piece of equipment from 30 or 40 or any feet away. And because there's wind, because there's ambient noise, and then, so it's fundamentally unenforceable. So,
The general tone of the noise level, regardless of whether there's a pump or whatever, is gonna be at the maximum.
well, he basically said on windy days, it's already louder than 55
Right.
decibels, so. Yeah,
Right. I mean, our conversation here today is like 55 decibels. This is sort of, your speaking voice is kind of 55. So, I mean, first of all, the law, I think that the limit is kind of low, but
I
Well,
don't know why
especially-
she doesn't push to put in, the sound barriers around all the equipment. It makes a big difference.
Can't they put a doghouse on top of the pumps?
then you get the HGC involved.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's gonna get so,
Who doesn't have an
if it's too
administrator?
noisy in town, don't you want a sound barrier? Like, isn't that like a built-in sound barrier for you right there?
Well, you don't have pool pumps in town.
Oh, well, I guess a few houses do, but.
Yeah, same thing with air
But
conditioner
yeah.
compressors. Some of them, old compressors are really noisy.
Yeah, then they can be.
Oh, yeah, all those are.
Okay, all right, so we have the information we need for, I'll email Gail tomorrow and send her these points and see if she can do them. And then other than that, I have no other unless anybody else has any other business, I can look for a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen, did you have anything else on the lighting? I'm sorry, I didn't ask
No,
you.
no, nothing more.
Okay.
Oh.
You don't need anything else. Okay, good. Then,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
thank you, Jill,
Hi.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Denise, I, Maria, thank you. Libby, thank you for attending. Brian, of course, always a pleasure. And thanks to our #1 fan here, Mr. Barnes.